what I was talking about, and then I recognized that there's one little point I'd like for us to discuss a little bit, and that is take Isaac. We'll sign Isaac, I-S-A-A-C. Okay, that's Abraham's son, Isaac, something like that. Anyway, the point about taking him back. And we know in the scriptures in Genesis chapter 24, verse 4 through 5 and 6, we talked about how the servant Abraham, those two were discussing, make an agreement that the servant will follow what Abraham's instructions, and that they were clear. And the servant had to decide whether he can live related with whatever Abraham's request. And so part of the discussion was about the servant going to get and take a bride for Isaac. And so his question to Abraham is, what would happen if the girl won't come? I take her, she won't come. What we do, that means I go and I take Isaac and we go back there. And Abraham really gave a stern warning. He says, be aware warning, that thou bring not my son, bring him to there. So there, take him, go back to Abraham's old home. No. It was a very stern warning. And at the bottom, we talked about this oath, and it said, do not take Isaac into the old family land, but take a qualified wife. Now, this verse in verse 55, it talked about, remember the situation where the servant he was excited and he had a long story what happened, and he explained and he expanded, and the family agreed, okay, yeah, Rebecca can go, really should go. And so, but tonight, sleep all night, eat, sleep. And the servant thought the deal was done. Until in the morning, when the brother and the mother says, well, let the girl abide with us a few days, at least 10 days. Then after that, she will go. And so you see that right there is a hint of big trouble. All right. Abraham had warned the servant, be aware that you yourself promise, I'll go get Isaac and bring him. So we see that this family has their way of settling, being real vague and deceitful. That's what the family has. And so the servant says, don't hinder me. The Lord has prospered my way. The Lord has given me success. And so we follow where the success is. Don't follow where failure is. God said, go. Abraham says, take and come back. And that's it. But the family was trying to shake their own way. And so the question is, why not take Isaac? So what is the deal? We learn more. We really learn a lot through Jacob's story, more than Abraham's servant story. We see into what the family culture really is like. They try for several reasons. Now, and there is truth about Laban. and be aware. So my question is, why is it not okay for Isaac to go, but it's okay for Jacob? Isaac sent Jacob later, and that's part of our next story, but Isaac sent Jacob, you go to your mother's family and and find yourself a wife there. And so Jacob's situation is different, but in some ways the same as the servant's situation and the prosperity, what happened to him. And so why can't Isaac go back? That's interesting. So you think that it's easy to deceive Isaac?
No.
Never know. Okay, anybody else? Why Abraham not let Isaac go back to Abraham's old home? Why not? Tom?
If you and I talk about this, the same reason why was it Jacob would not permit Benjamin to go to Egypt, but the same thing that Isaac was the promised son, and the last son before his mother had died.
Before Sarah died. Okay, he was the promised son, and so he held tight to him. That's a good one. Well, Abraham's family is named Bethuel, not Laban. Bethuel. They knew the family trait, the family of two. So they would probably imagine that Isaac would go and the family would find a way to keep. Laban himself would do that. Anyone else? Those are all very, very good points. I do not have a complete answer with that. I was not wanting to ask you and then me with the right answer, because there is no right answer with this exact answer. There's none. So I just wanted to share that with you. And so it makes you wonder, Abraham said, no, be aware. When you see somebody say, yourself, you notice, you be aware of what they will do. You watch out. Get the girl and bring her back. And you get a damsel, a young one, not an older one. Young, innocent, still playful, work hard, learning, but really not involved with the deceit character. So we take her and give her to Isaac, and that's it. But not mess with the men. It's interesting, right? So he gave him a very, very stern warning. The servant needed to be loyal to the exact words of Abraham and not let them sway his attention. What they want, well, try to be nice to you, we try to be polite, try to help whatever. I don't want to do that. When we get into the next lessons here, how did Abraham know Laban? Sarah, oh, don't go. Sarah, how did they know his reputation? I think it's because of the family trait of Bethuel related with Nahor. Haran died. All right, that's Lot's father died, so we're not counting that one. But there's something in that family right there. No, Lot was with Abraham. It could be anything's possible for Abraham, but it could be God gave him the warning, because God said, come out. I have plans for you. I have special plans for you. I want you to go to this land. I'm ready to give you blessing. And God blessed Abraham. But you don't notice the blessing up there with the old family. Blessing is not there. The blessing's with Abraham. Could be the family heard about their blessings and wanted to come there. That means that their blessing and steal their blessing. Okay, now.
Good. You want the rabbinical interpretation of that?
The rabbi interpretation.
Yeah. Rabbi Isaac called Bethel a wicked man.
Bethuel,
a wicked
man.
Midrash identified Bethuel as a king.
As a king?
In his retelling of the story, Josephus reported that Rebekah told Abraham's servant, my father was Bethuel, but he's dead, and Laban is my brother, and together with my mother takes care of all our family affairs and the guardian of my virginity.
That's
so
the Jewish midrash.
Yeah.
Jewish culture they're talking. That's where Tom has found that little bit of information. So all of that is very, very interesting. Now in Genesis chapter 28, this is the promise that Isaac called Jacob and blessed him. Now if you remember, the story of Jacob is very different than his father Isaac and Abraham. But yet, Jacob received the blessing. How did Jacob get the blessing? How did Jacob? Through the father Isaac. How did Jacob get the blessing? Through dreams. How did Jacob get the blessing? The mother, Rebecca. Mother's name is Rebecca. Rachel was his wife. Rebecca wanted the blessing, favored the son, and put him there. And that Isaac took the words, and he had to escape and leave the house. That's part of it. What's another additional part with that story?
He stole Esau's birthright.
Jacob, cunning, he was very, very cunning and stole birthright from Esau. That's number one. Number two, he also, his mother figured out how to take the blessing to So there was working that family trait that we're talking about, Bethuel. That family trait is still in the family with Jacob, Trait, character. Yeah, his way, it's like his way is still. Esau was more, Jacob stayed in the house and a little bit more. So Jacob is very much like the family. Why do you think God did not straighten out Jacob? What is the purpose of letting him do that? But Abraham did lie. When did Abraham lie? Egypt, yeah. Abraham did, right? He did. His wife Sarah, and the king in Egypt, yes, a beautiful woman. And Abraham said, oh, that's my sister. Well, that's true. Half sister, it was true. It was not a full lie. Half truth. Misleading. Not correct with God.
God did straighten out Jacob.
God did straighten out
During
Jacob.
the time that his vision with the ladder, the angel descending and coming down, and then the wrestling with the angel.
Then the wrestling with the angel. Now we're going to be getting into that a little bit later.
You're going to show Jacob's ladder?
I'm trying to get to it. I took it off. Yeah, this is not what I want. Okay, let's get back to this Genesis chapter 28, verse 1 through 5. Now Isaac called Jacob and blessed him, and charged him, and said to him, you will not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. That sound familiar? He says, but who else did the same thing? Who else? Just last week we talked about that person. Who else did the same thing? You will not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. This is Isaac telling Jacob. Where did he get that idea? Where did he get that idea from? Who?
From his own experience.
Abraham told the servant the same thing, right? I just want to know if you remember last Sunday school lesson. And we go down. But you will arise, go to Padan, to the house of Bethuel, thy mother's father, and take, see the wording, take a wife from the daughters of Laban, thy mother's brother. All right? Same thing that Abraham told the servant or Isaac. So Isaac's following the same tradition related with his father Abraham. He's following his father's idea. And God Almighty bless thee and make thee fruitful and multiply, that you may be multiplied of people. All right, now, so this is what is called Abraham's blessing. And give you this blessing of Abraham to thee, to your family, with thee, and that you will inherit the land wherein you are a stranger, that God gave to Abraham. All right, so this is the blessing that of Abraham. God promised to Abraham and promised to Isaac. Now it's passed on to Jacob, not to Esau. It's given to Jacob. So this is the blessing of Abraham onto Jacob. And we're going on to this one. All right. You see the map here? Place right in here. Right in there. All right. Just a quick thing if interest. See this? I was looking for a picture, and I have pictures, but it's strange, it's not in this computer. But this is called REHOVOT. REHOVOT. Before we leave the subject about Isaac himself, person, we don't hear much about Isaac having problems and his troubles, except where he stayed and he lived in that area. Isaac did not go up there. Okay, the servant went up there. Abraham came down, but he did not go back up. Instead, he sent a servant. The servant did, but not Abraham. And he held Isaac to stay right in this area. So the story related with Isaac is that Isaac, his tendency, when he was famous for finding water, find water in strange places. So he would find water. But the people of the land, the people of Canaan, and that area, they tried to stop Isaac's success, and they fill up his wells with dirt. Isaac would go and find, and his sheep and goats would go and drink fine, but the enemy come and fill up. He went at about 3 different places. Finally, he arrived at a place called Rehoboth. That today is this place, Rehoboth. B and B in the Hebrew language, B to the English sound, but they use it the same way in Israel. So this is the area that Tom and I visited, and that's where they made bullets against England. England didn't know it was during World War II or right after that. World War II is before Israel became a nation. They went underground and they were killing and they were warring against the Arabs. All of them are Arabs. And so this is the place. But this also is the place where Isaac, 4,000 years prior, he was successful in finding water there. in that area, found a huge well. We know when you visit Beersheba, it's not too far from there, there's a huge well, water cistern. You can go down into that, and when it rained, it flooded up. And so Isaac was famous for finding water, and that's what we know about Isaac. So here in this story, Isaac sends his son Jacob because Jacob had deceived Esau, and Esau was hot. He was so mad. And Isaac was shocked because he was blind. He couldn't see who this was. And his wife, Rebecca, beautiful Rebecca, deceived him too. And she wanted this son, Jacob. Well, Rebecca had received a vision or dream from the Lord. She had asked the Lord inside, what's going on? And so God told her, he said, there's in your womb there's two nations, two be different, and the older will serve the younger. And so Rebecca, when the time happened, deceived and wanted Jacob to receive the blessing and not Esau. But she loved Esau and wanted to keep him near her husband because he loved hunting. He was a good, and then she could cook some good meat for her husband. But wanted Jacob to receive the family blessing in the line to grow famous through this special bloodline. So now we see that Jacob well, we're ready to talk about it. Okay. You need to understand that Esau was very, very successful. They had a special reason he had successful. His sons born became leaders, are called dukes in Edom. Esau established Edom. Okay, so he was not a failure. He was a success. But there's a special reason. It's a God's touch, God's special touch on the family line. That was going to be the line to Christ. Okay, Esau not. And also Jacob's line of blessing was supposed to be eternal. Esau come to a stop. Esau's family successful to invent. Okay? And God said, Esau, he hated Jacob, I love. Right. So it's an odd story for them. Now, in Genesis chapter 32, verse 10, we see that Jacob, in this story, his mother had sent him to go. All right. And so Jacob did go, but now he went through things. All right. And we're going to find out about what Jacob went through. And God did bless him. He did have Abraham's blessing in his life, but he received it a different way. Abraham simply trusted God, and he worked hard, yes, but he did not have to struggle. All right, Jacob had to go through struggle every time he wanted to succeed. He struggled with this and that. And he also received a lot of visions from God. God gave him dreams and visions, gave him answers, but Jacob had to struggle with what to do in his life. And so now in chapter 32, from 28 to 32, is related with Jacob and how he got the wives and his family grown, and that's in there. And it also talks about Jacob's relationship with Laban. We're going to find out in a little while about that. But we're starting our story with Jacob is ready. He's at the river Jordan right there. Esau is coming. with 400 of his men, and Jacob's men, to Jacob, you know, your brother has 400 men coming. They're coming fast. And Jacob became paranoid, and he didn't know exactly what to do. Panicked. He was like, oh, he's going to come and kill my whole family. His imagination. God had already told him to go, I will take care of you. But he was so paranoid, he was panicking about what, because guilt. He had the guilt. He knew he did his brother wrong. He knew his brother, and his brother was, he had a right for payback. He owed me, he had a right. And so Jacob here in this part of the story is now, he's taking his family, he's put them back, and he's just separate them. And so he is left alone. And so when he is there, he says, I'm not worthy of the least of all thy mercies and of all the truth. The truth. We've been working on that word truth to find out what it means in his life. So we're going to see what the truth is related with Jacob. And he says, and he tells the Lord, he says, you know, I've gone through and go through, and you bless me and bless me not. I've deceived, and he says, because for with my staff I passed over Jordan. Jordan seems to be the boundary. Israel, Jordan, another country. And he says, I'm ready to cross over. He says, but first I crossed over and grew, and now two separate bands. He had Rachel and Leah, two separate. He put Leah in the front and he kept Rachel safe in the back. Okay, so he said, now I've become two bands. Before it was just me and a staff. Cross. So God kept his word. That's part of the truth. His truth that he gave the blessing, the promise to Jacob. And now Jacob tells him, you know, I don't deserve what you've given me. And so at this time, when he crossed the first time, he was about 75 years old. Now he's going back over, he's about 95 years old. I'm talking about rough Jacob. And his father is about 60 years older, 155 years old. So you wonder how old. So, and that meant he was 95 and 130, 40, about with less than 40 years he would be in Egypt. Now, we see that the word truth, I'm going to go check what that is about. Truth shows stability, gives them stability. And so God talks. Jacob, like Abraham, found out what you say is true. I don't have to worry. Abraham is fine. He did not worry. Jacob worry. God was fine. Jacob, why? Why? Jacob had to. Why was he afraid of his brother? 20 years in an idolatry country. But I think it was more than that. It's more mind. In his heart, guilt. You know, when you have sin in your life and you do something wrong against somebody, guilt is there. 20 years. imagination. Empty imagination. Because God is a God that promised him, I will take care. I've already taken care. Because he sent him out and said, I've taken care of your brother. Don't worry. But he went ahead and worried anyway. That's part of Jacob's personality. He's a worrier. That's part of his struggle in his life. But God was the same. He was true. He had this truth. And that's why Jacob probably said, Lord, I'm not worthy. You're wonderful to me, and that shows lack of faith. Worry, worry, worry. He did not have to go through all of that worry, but he had a little doubt in, will God really take care of somebody who does not deserve it? Will God really take care of me? I really don't deserve it. I have sinned, I have been wrong, I don't deserve your love, but yet God says, I love you, but I have a hard time accepting his love because of who I am. Make sense? Now, another part of that word meaning we talked about before, it means to build or support, to act like a parent. So God was acting like a parent to Jacob, and to give and be firm and to trust in Jacob. God trusted in Jacob. When God told him to do things, and he trusted in Jacob, so he gave him the blessing, and that showed, yes, God trusted in Jacob, but did Jacob really trust God? He knew God could, but would God, because of who I am? So God was permanent, true, and certain. And also part of it is choose the right hand. So here we see in Genesis chapter 32 that when Jacob arrived at that place after he left Laban, he arrived at the river Jordan. He called the place Mahanaim. He called that place. And that means, that is in the Strong's Concordance, it's called separation. Two groups. If you remember, we said that Jacob's family, he put them in two groups. And so he tells the Lord, I first arrived here, I'm 75 years old, I arrived with staff. Now I come back 95 years old, I have two groups. And so that, and then Jacob named that place. That's one thing that God gave Jacob authority, is to name a place. Can you and I just go into some place? I'm going to name this town. I'm going to name it Calvary Deaf Church Town. I name the town. No, but Jacob had that kind of a blessing to where God said, you can name. And he accepted that name. The same thing with Bethel. When he had Jacob's ladder, that story there, he named that place. He called it the house of God. So when Jacob had experience with God, he tended to name that place too. We can see here that that Abraham was old, and also the Lord had blessed him in all things. And we see that God had blessed, and I used this in the last 2 and 3 weeks lessons right here. I'm just throwing it to remind you that God had blessed Abraham in all things. And we see that Abraham's name, we talk about Abram and Abraham. You see that kind of the blessing right there. It says Abraham, he was the father they had, the bloodline Abram. But now, when God changed his name, he inserted vision in him. he inserted his way to talk through Abraham. So when Abraham wanted something, he was called a prophet. A prophet. That's where the Egypt king noticed Abraham was a prophet, because the Egypt king and the family owner, they couldn't get their wives pregnant. Why not? Because God had made them sterile. They were stuck. They couldn't get their wives pregnant. And the Egypt king recognized, oh, prophet, something's wrong. So Abraham, you told me you're not married to her. We played around and we get in trouble with God. God cursed us because of you. You're a prophet. You should know better. Abraham was funny. Abraham did not think of himself as a prophet. Normal guy. I'm just normal. But he really caused a lot of trouble for other people. And they would object to that. So we see here that God had intervened and made him a prophet, and God showed him an unlimited bloodline too. Remember, the letter M is unlimited liquid bloodline. Now we're going to compare a minute between Abraham's name, how God showed a difference between how he named Abram and a short intervention God put into Abraham. But with Jacob, he did different. You see the colors here? This is like the J, but it sounds like a Y. It means the arm, hand, to work, to do something. Eyes. This is right here. Talk about behind the house. Now remember, when Jacob was born, Esau came out first. And so Jacob grabbed the heel. So Jacob was always behind his brother. Always in the family, he was second, called second, meaning he was behind. Always fought. You can see from his birth, the name of Jacob shows he always struggled, fought to get what he wanted. That was his character. He would not let go until he won something, got his blessing. He would fight, and they fought to be born first. And his brother beat him. He's a stronger boy. And so you can see that. So now when it came time for a name change, you do not see anything the same. Not even the Jacob is changed to the I, Israel. You see how I is, that means teeth, and to separate. Head, authority, first, strong. L means shepherd, teach to, from. You kind of get an idea of what God is talking about. He changed Jacob from last to becoming first in the life. And he had power with God. Israel, we know, has power with God. Jacob is a struggler, a deceiver, to get what he wants. And now we see that Jacob has power with God. He would struggle with God too. He just kept fighting all the time. So we see here that from Jacob, to prevail. have power. Good. And it's called roll together. His name means roll together. Roll together, that means that wrestling. We see in the story the wrestling, that shows his character, and it's written in his name. It's that character, even in how he has his power. His power is in the way he struggles, in the way he fights to get what he wants. Okay, I would like to continue this story next week. I'm going to get into the part of how we see what that family is like and what Jacob had to struggle, some of his struggles that he went through. And God blessed him, and how that family of Nahor, Bethuel, and Laban kept trying to take it from Jacob. And part of Jacob's struggle, he had to live through that. Kept trying to take it from me, and I had to fight it to keep it and help him, bless him, and help him. Couldn't take care of my own family because of the brother Laban. That's what Jacob had to be patient with. So you see why Abraham warned the servant, don't go there. They give me plenty of trouble. Not patient with for my son. So Abraham must have gone through stuff that we don't see in the Bible except through Jacob's story. Okay, so we stand. We're going to close in prayer, and next week we'll continue with the story a little bit more. All right. Who would like to close in prayer? Who would like to close in prayer? Jeff, would you like to close in prayer? Just let that run.
Okay. Look, Father of the world, who is loving, mighty in the world, is the word God, the above, and beyond, and that dire one, blood the eat one of the daughter, the rage, will be body, the body, blow for you to want them, to the good part of God, full of God, and everything that will put, and
Amen. Amen. Amen.